Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird91. We're talking to you guys about Fresh and Fit, and I'm saying this is I titled this, obviously this is a black man or black men, women you need to run from. Whether you're white, whether you're black, Hispanic, whatever, you need to be running from. Okay, these type of men here you need to run from. Now, there's a video that was put up on on the Morning Juice Instagram, and so I want to break it down in two parts. I'm going to do part one this video. I'm going to talk specifically about the Morning Juice video, talk about colorism, racism, talk about what a preference really is, and break that down. Then I'm going to do another video where I'm going to do part two, specifically addressing the fact that women should be staying away from these type of black men. It is good to let men, especially, and I'm talking about black people because that's my community, it's good to let certain black men open their mouth because they hang themselves. And when you hear them hang themselves, you do not engage. You leave them alone and you go about your business. But we'll talk about that in part two. Let's do part one. If you're new to the channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. And for those of you who are returning, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Stay hydrated because the streets out there are hot. All right, cool. Let's get into this.
I never used that one, bro, but hey, man.
I mean, hey, bro, if you want to date a bunch of Shaniquas, go for it, man.
LaQuisha.
Yeah, like me and Fresh aren't really down with the brown like that.
Man.
We ain't night riders.
Nah,
so
bro, I'm good.
Sometimes if they're, red bone, but like in general, me and Fresh don't dabble in the dark, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Okay, so last one, guys.
Final round.
Now, we're not going to mention names for certain reasons, right?
Yes.
For a bunch of...
I had to make some notes. Natural video, I'll try and play it and edit it into this conversation. But I want to break down exactly what was said, right? So I transcribed at least the parts that I needed to make this conversation understandable for you guys, okay? Now, you guys have heard me speak about colorism before. You've heard me speak a little bit about racism as well during the Black Lives Matter situation in 2020. You guys have heard me talk about preferences. You've heard me talk about Kevin Samuels. You've heard me talk about a lot of different subjects, right? This particular video is about 30 seconds long clip, right? And it's disgusting. Okay, and I'll tell you why it's disgusting, yeah? Because it is the rhetoric, the stereotype, and the falsities, okay, that are put on black women. And I'm saying this not to simp for black women, but rather to make you understand that when they put this kind of stereotype on black women, it affects me. Because you're talking about my future daughter, you're talking about my sister, you're talking about my mom, right? But you ain't talking about your own mom. You talking about somebody else's daughter, somebody else's sister, somebody else's mom, but not your mom. Not your mom. Your mom is not the ratchet one. No, your mom is not the annoying one. No, your mom is not the dark night rider that you said that other black women are. Your mom is not this person who's a dark person. No, but you're talking about someone else as a woman. This is why I said it affects us as black men. And when I see that, I get pissed off because that's some bullcrap. Right, so let me break it down to what I'm saying. Okay, first and foremost, I want to give this context. Fresh and Fit are fake alphas, right? When we talk about alpha, you're probably sick and tired of hearing alpha male, whatever. Don't worry about that. But just for the context of conversation, these men are fake alphas pretending to be alphas. Okay, they are teaching other men, okay, because they have status due to them understanding how YouTube works, putting out content, which is, by the way, whether you agree with it or not, is great marketing. And they've understood that, created a platform of status, but the content is lacking. And this is what I talk about with human beings all the time, and human beings, with women and men, and talk about the fact that if you don't have content, character, values, attitudes, no matter how big you get, you'll be found out, right? Because when you talk, we're gonna know what's in your heart. The Bible lets us know that. Listen, what comes out of your mouth is actually really coming from your heart. So what you speak, it's coming forth from your heart, right? So what these two guys have decided to do during the course of the video, right, was they were talking, and it's the context, they were talking about an app called Black App, right? And it's for black people dating, basically, I think it was, basically, yeah? Now, they...
I never used that one, bro, but hey, man.
I mean, hey, bro, if you want to date a bunch of Shaniquas, go for it, man.
LaQuisha.
Yeah, like me and Fresh aren't really down.
You mentioned obviously about the black app, and the first thing they did was a hysterical big laugh, right? And then Myron decided to, and I'll put a picture of Myron so you can see him. Myron's I think on the left here. Myron decides to open his mouth, right? Okay, and say, well, if you want to go ahead and date LaQuishas, you go for it. Now, I want to pause it right there, because many people go, it's only jokes, it's only comedy, it's only a laugh. No, it's not. No, it's not. And context is so important, right? Because remember, what they're about to come and say after is, they don't even date black women. So the joke about LaQuisha now has a different context to it. If you know that, if you know somebody loves black women, dates black women, all they see is black women, and they make a joke about, let's say, a LaQuisha or whatever, we're going to take that comment completely differently because of the context that we understand, right? But if you show that you dislike black women, because remember, he's about to give, listen, I'm going to break down what he says later on. The other guy, what's the other guy's name? Fresh or whatever his name. I don't know whether the darker skinned dude, sorry. He actually gives a reason as to why he doesn't date black women.
Just keeping it real, I don't really date black girls. It's not because like most black girls are like annoying, how to put this, ratchet, and they don't know how to like be reserved.
He says because they're ratchet, they're annoying, okay, and they don't know how to be reserved. He says a lot of them are. So that tells me instantly the stereotype that he's come across, right? Because I went to watch a video, and he went to explain onwards his background. Okay, and the darkest can do. I always forget his name. Fresh or whatever. He explains that because he grew up in I think Caribbean or whatever, and I can't remember what island it was, but obviously his first ever girlfriend he had sex with first ever girl he had sex with was white. I get it. I hear you, right? And then the island that he was on, a lot of the tourists were white, so he was obviously having sex with tourist girl. Okay, listen. I have no problem with your preference being you date white women. I got no problem, right? Yes, that's your business, bro. That is your business. I mean, my preference is a black woman, right? I actively discriminate against other races because I understand the fact that there is a lot of nuances when it comes to dating and dating outside of your race. It's a lot of nuances dating outside your tribe. There's a lot of nuances dating outside your culture, let alone dating outside of your actual race. So that's another conversation in itself we can have another day. But he gave this background, and instantly I could see that this is got, when we deal with people like him, black men who talk about women with a stereotype, I wrote a blog about 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago? Is it almost 10 years ago now? Probably a little bit short now, maybe 8 years ago. Called Gentleman Extraordinaire. And I titled it, Why Black Successful Men Date White Women, right? And then I listed some of the crappy excuses that black men use to not date black women. Some of them was like, black men don't like their weave, black men think that black women are too loud, some black men think that black women are ghetto, some black men think that black women are unaccomplished, some black men think that black women don't know how to behave, some black men think that black women are not smart and intelligent, some black men think that that she doesn't represent a higher class. There are so many different stereotypes that are ugly and absolutely not true, but are force-fed lies that come from oftentimes media, okay, all right, in regards to how they portray black people on TV. You see, the excuses that some of these black men use, right, they get frustrated when if a black woman now starts saying all black men are just ghetto, they just rob people, they're just, they're sexual assaulters, they're all this. If black women started saying that to us, bro, we would be up in uproar. Because we already have a problem with the fact that when women say all men are trash, well, you ain't dated all every woman, every man. We get vexed at that, and rightly so, because I don't think you should be generalizing all of us. So for him to come out and say the reason why he doesn't date black girls, first and foremost, is because black girls are ratchet, they're annoying, they don't have to be reserved. really speaks volumes of the fact that you haven't even you haven't even dated a black woman. I don't think you've even dated a black woman. It sounds like, right? But he go and say, oh, I think Myron said, oh, he's dated a black girl before, right? People say date when sometimes what they really mean is had sex. But hey, maybe he can clear that up for us as well. But you know, the excuse that he's using as to why he doesn't like black women can be found in white women, can be found in Asian women, can be found in Indian women. Listen, let me tell you something. When I grew up, right, yeah, I grew up in an all-black area, okay? And the people that were bullying me were black women. I said this before. I said this in my other video. The people that were bullying me, I should simply say black women, because I would get slaughtered for that, black girls, right? When I was a young kid, right, it was black girls that were bullying me. Calling me ugly, calling me dark, calling me, you know, unclapped, this, that. Yeah? I didn't have a hatred towards them. And I actually went to a primary school with all white kids. Right? So I went to a school where I had all white kids. So all I knew was white girls, right? In that young age. And then I come out of that, right? I went to secondary school, and I went to church and everything like that, where there's just black women, or black girls, I should say, right? And black girls were not looking at me like that, no way, But at the end of the day, when I spent time with them and I got to understand them too, I was like, yo, we're akin. We have the same cultures, we come from the same kind of backgrounds, and you know what I'm saying, we have the same kind of experiences. And I talk to white women, white girls, I should say, and I don't have that same affinity. But even if I felt like I was more cultured to date a white woman, why do I have to have reasons that put down black girls or black women to be able to access my preference? That is the key point in all of this. And I'm going to come back to the beginning of the video because I'm going to have to address the comments that were made in the very first part of this video. Why do we have to put down a black woman or black girl before we can access our preferences? That's the trouble I have right now, right? Like, if your issue is that, listen, hey, you know what, black girls are not checking for me, black women are not checking for me, then I'm like, all right, cool, bro, I get what you're saying. The type of girls that you want, they're not really checking for you. But you then add the adjectives of annoying, you know, ratchet, you know, don't know how to be reserved. And you're adding these observations, which I honestly think are absolutely false, because I know so many black women and black girls who are not that way.
And they don't know how to, like, be reserved. You're like the complete opposite.
You are not the stereotype. You are not the stereotype.
You are not the same. That's awesome.
So, yeah, so we'll give you that compliment too.
What's your Instagram?
Right? So, and whenever I reason with a certain black men, especially with the way they see black women and black girls, a lot of times this rhetoric comes through, this hurt rhetoric that starts to seep in and become part of their ethos as to why they don't date black women and black girls, and they don't take time to really assess what they've just said. Right? I remember I spoke to a brother, and not my actual brother, but I spoke to a brother in kind. This was a few years ago, before I came to my area that I do now. It's about 4 years ago. 3-4 years ago, and I met him in town, and I obviously I've been out. I was, you know, we've chatted and everything like that, and we just started a conversation with a gentleman where I met him in town, and we had spoken, and we were talking about relationships and stuff like that, and he broke down obviously that he was dating this white girl, right? And I said, oh, cool. I want to ask him why he was dating this white girl. He starts talking about black women. And I looked at him like, I looked at him, but I didn't say anything because you guys already know how I am. I wait to let the person finish because I want to know everything you're going to say, right? So he starts talking, and he starts mentioning how black women are also saying they're ghetto, they are loud, they're rude, they have weave falling out their hair, and can't touch a black woman's hair. And a lot of it just sounded angry, bitter, and hurt. So you know what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to ask him the question. So I asked him a question. I said to him, bro, you've kind of spoken to me about why you date white women, but you kind of made the whole point about black women rather than actually talking to me about why you want to date white women. Cool. So let me ask you a question. Like, what is your experience of dating a black woman? He starts speaking about the experience. Found out the black girl cheated on him. All right, cool. I hear you. I mean, we've all been cheated on before, or at least done some cheating out here. But okay, I'm hearing you. And then obviously I asked him as well, like, what's the family life like? Or what's your parents like? Dad is not at home. It was a mum who raised him, you know, and, you know, for him, you know, he's always thankful to his mum, but, you know, he doesn't date black women. All right, cool. So there are alarm bells ringing in my head right now, and I'm piecing things together. I'm like, bro, it really sounds like you have unresolved issues with your Marge that are not about your Marge, but are about your daddy. Okay? It's about your daddy. Yeah, your dad abandoned your mum didn't abandon you, but you got anger towards your mum because your dad left, and you're almost blaming your mum for your dad leaving, even though your mum hasn't given you cause or reason to think that it was her fault as to why your dad left. And I said, that's what it really sounds like. This is like 4 years ago, you know, I had this conversation. That's what it sounds like, bro. And I said, the vitriol that you have towards black women makes no sense. You got cheated on, so we all get cheated on. We've all been cheated on before, bro. And like you're going on like you're new to, like, you're the first black person to. Most of us have been cheated on in some shape or form. Like, I shouldn't say most of us, a lot of us have, right? That doesn't equate now to them being ghetto, ratchet, What have you seen that you get this from? And when I asked him, where does this come from? There was a moment in his thought process that he was like, oh, I ain't really thought of it like that. I haven't thought. And this is exactly what racism is like. A lot of people don't think, right? And so I tell the story because when I realized that, I said these people are having confirmational bias, because you have to understand as well, right? Let's say for instance you've heard that black women are ratchet, ghetto, loud, right? But you never experienced it yourself. Okay, then you actually meet a black woman and she is the stereotype of what we're talking about. You're gonna confirm your bias in that one meeting. The problem with men as well in the situation is that due to the patriarchal society that we live in, consequences for actions are completely different for men than it is for women. Let's look at sexual liberation. It's not the same for both men and women. The problem also too is that men can say what they want and have no consequences for it. So men do say whatever they want and have no consequences for it, and then turn around and be like, hey, I don't know why you're so vexed, right? We do that. And with the situation, you know, when it comes to men and females and the society that we live in as well, you know, the confirmation bias that the gentleman had is also tied into a painful, traumatic event, right? All right, the abandonment of a father is a traumatic event, and the trouble is this: that event where you meet a black woman and stereotype, or she cheats on you, whatever, it actually links back to a first traumatic event that solidifies your confirmational bias to saying what you're saying right now and not thinking about what you're saying. I say this because just on the Fresh and Fit podcast, the gentleman did the exact same thing. He said, my first girl I slept with was a white woman. Fine. But then why did you have to list why did you have to list negatives as why you don't date black women? Right? If it's a preference, right? Listen, my preference is black women. Right? Not because white women are bad, not because white women are ratchet, not because they're not submissive, not because they're not loud, not because they're you know, anything else, and not even because they're even racist. It's not even because of that. It's simply because I have an affinity towards black women, the cultural aspects of us, the traditional aspects of us, the way we think, the way we move, the way we chill together, the way we vibe, the way we're creative, the way we look at life. You know, I know you can find some of those similarities in white folk, but the true matter is, what I'm going to experience in life, he or she will never be able to go through what I'm going through. You will never experience racism the way that I'm experiencing racism. You will never understand systematic racism the way I am. You may be able to maybe actually understand it, but you won't be able to have gone through it personally. Therefore, there's a language conversation, and that's just one aspect. I'm talking about our culture in terms of food, the way we eat, the things that we like, the way we perceive life. They're all different aspects that are included. And even within dating black women, there are tribes, there are cultures within that, which make it even complicated dating even a fellow black person, let alone somebody outside of the race. So, you know, so for me, I'm not dating black women and saying, well, I have to hate on white women when I do that. No, I don't need to. My preference is to date black women. I don't have to hate white women to do that. But we have black men, just like this gentleman on the podcast, who has to say he doesn't date black women and put them down as to why he doesn't hate black women. And that is the rhetoric we're trying to kill. Because that is damaging, and that is divisive, and that is killer. Right? There's life and death in the tongue. So the tongue now is becoming a murder weapon. And that's what I'm talking about, that I don't like and I don't rate. And as a black man, I will speak against. Because you ain't about to come and talk about my sister, my future daughter, you know, my mother, my aunt. You're not about to come and talk to them about. But your own mum, you're not saying that about. Your own mum isn't ratchet. Your own mum isn't ghetto. Your own mum isn't these things that you're talking about. No, your Marge and your family and sister, your Marge and your sisters are fine, usually. I say usually because there are some black men that will even say they hate their Marge and they hate their sisters. They'll call them these things, right? And usually it's because they hold them accountable. But hey ho. So you know, let me go back to my notes, because that's what I originally was talking about, and I've kind of gone past the original point. You know, they talked about the context of this dating app, right? I talked about the context of the dating app. They started laughing. Then he said, "Oh, so you want to date LaQuisha? Go for it. You want to date LaQuisha? You go for it." That in itself is not even a genuine, true comment. Like if I'm supporting you, like if you want to date a black woman, yeah, go for it. Why not? Sincerity in my tone, in my voice, the words that I choose. You want to date a LaQuisha? You go for it. You've already stereotyped that black woman as and you remember they didn't make it specific and say there are some ghetto black women that y'all want to date. I don't think you should be dating. They said black women, meaning you were talking about the whole encompassing of them. And I've told you guys about this polarization of language when we say some, all, a few. You have to be very careful how you number a group, because it can come back onto you. And I've done it before myself, you know, and I have to check myself, and I always say that. But they're talking about, if you want to date a black woman, if you want to date a LaQuisha, you go for it. So now all black women are now LaQuishas. Now all black women are stereotypes of this ghetto that you're talking about, this uneducated, uncouth black woman, right? And he goes on to say, we ain't down with the brown like that. What? I ain't even going to use an argument that your mom's black. No, it doesn't make no sense. Your preference is your preference. But we ain't down with the brown like that. All right, cool. Okay. So you're still talking about color, right? All right, cool. He said, he said, obviously, sometimes we'll date red bones. Now, we know, again, red bones in terms of color, being lighter skinned, they don't mind doing that. This is where the colorism kicks in. This is why I said it's disgusting. And it's not a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke to be made. Right? It wasn't a joke to be made. Because at the point where he says, listen, he says, oh, sometimes red bone, right? But we ain't night riders. We don't dabble in dark. So just I want to rewind. And maybe I have to do a separate video for this so I can focus specifically on this point, which I find absolutely disgusting and despicable. And it's the type of black man we are not going to be entertaining. That's why I'm talking about the Kevin Samuel stuff and this. No, we're not, right? He said, listen, we ain't down with a brown like that. Sometimes we'll date red bones. Talking about light-skinned girl, okay? Browning, okay? But we ain't no night riders. We don't dabble in the dark. So this is a colorism issue, right? This now not a racism issue. It's a colorism issue, because they're talking about the dark skin tone of a black woman, the dark hues of a black woman, the unfavorability of a dark-skinned woman. Do you see my point? Do you get my point? That this whole rhetoric is ugly. When you start with the we ain't no night riders, right? Night rider of the car, blacked out, blah, 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 yeah? But you talk about sometimes red bones. There's a comparison there instantly. And a lot of times it's done consciously. Sorry, it's done subconsciously, but it's a conscious move, because it's your truthful heart posture towards dark-skinned black women. There's a dislike there. right? There's an ingrained taught colorism that is causing a hatred of darker skinned women here. And if you want to understand the context, there's a video that's a large video, and I'll post a link in my description, where at 1 hour 58 they begin to discuss this video that I'm talking about in their actual latest video, okay? And they try to explain themselves, right? And at one point Myron's like, I don't have to explain myself. No, you're right, you don't have to. But you didn't have to say all that you said. You didn't have to make the jokes that you did, but you did. And there's a large black man following of this Fresh and Fit, and a lot of them will never say anything because they themselves agree with it. Stay away from them type of people. Ladies, stay away from these type of men who hold this rhetoric. We ain't gonna try and fight them. Just stay away from them type of man that hate black women like this. Yeah. Fresh and Fit moving mad. I want to do a part 2 because I know I've gone off the scale and maybe I haven't addressed the actual. I wanted to address the video specifically, but I've talked quite a bit about a few topics. So we'll come back in part 2 and we'll talk a little bit more as well. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded.